You grab milk believing it's a simple, wholesome product. You trust that cows are humanely treated and milk is free from harmful contaminants. Laboratory researchers, animal welfare investigators, and food safety experts reveal a disturbing reality about certain milk brands sold across America. The worst milk brands don't just produce mediocre products, they systematically abuse animals, contain illegal antibiotics above FDA tolerance levels, test positive for pesticides and synthetic hormones, and deceive consumers with false marketing claims about animal welfare. The problems aren't limited to quality. They represent criminal animal cruelty, health risks from contamination, and corporate fraud on a massive scale. The contamination issues extend beyond what most consumers realize. Research finds 60% of conventional milk samples contain antibiotic residues, some at illegal levels exceeding FDA limits. Pesticides appear throughout conventional milk from grain-fed cows. Growth hormones reach levels significantly higher than organic alternatives, raising questions about synthetic hormone treatments despite industry denials. Today, we're counting down the 5 worst milk brands in America according to laboratory testing, animal welfare investigations, and consumer protection advocates. From brands caught in viral animal abuse scandals to generic store brands consistently failing quality tests, these represent what experts actively warn consumers to avoid. And stick around until the end. We've got 5 bonus secrets about the dairy industry that will shock you. The revelations about antibiotic resistance, hormone treatments, and systematic animal cruelty will fundamentally change how you buy milk. Number 5. Great value. Walmart. The taste quality is consistently terrible. Customer reviews universally criticize Great Value milk's flavor, with consumers describing it as horrible and noting it tastes bad even before the expiration date. Longtime milk drinkers report this store brand is uniquely unpleasant compared to other milk brands. The early spoilage is a recurring problem. Multiple customers report Great Value milk turning bad well before expiration dates, suggesting problems with processing, storage, or transportation. One reviewer stated the milk has been consistently terrible, indicating this isn't isolated but systematic quality failure. The generic store brand model prioritizes cost over quality. Walmart's business strategy focuses on rock-bottom prices achieved through aggressive supplier cost-cutting. This pressure on dairy suppliers incentivizes using milk from the cheapest possible sources, regardless of quality or animal welfare standards. The sourcing transparency is completely absent. Great Value provides virtually no information about where milk comes from, what farms supply it, or what practices those farms use. The deliberate opacity allows Walmart to blend milk from various sources, switching suppliers based solely on cost, without consumer awareness. The testing results show contamination risks. Generic store-brand milk consistently shows higher levels of contaminants in independent testing compared to premium brands. The conventional production methods mean pesticide residues, antibiotic residues, and higher growth hormone levels are likely present. The animal welfare standards are unknown and likely minimal. Walmart's pressure on suppliers to provide the absolute lowest prices creates incentives to use concentrated animal feeding operations, CAFOs, with the worst conditions. The dairy cows producing Great Value milk likely live in crowded, unsanitary conditions without access to pasture. The environmental impact is substantial. The industrial dairy operations Walmart likely sources from contribute to massive environmental pollution through manure lagoons, water contamination, and greenhouse gas emissions. The scale of production required to supply Walmart's volume demands industrial factory farming methods. Consumer advocates specifically warn that ultra-cheap store-brand milk, like Great Value, represents the worst of industrial dairy, produced under maximum cost pressure that sacrifices animal welfare, environmental sustainability, and product quality while providing no transparency about sourcing or production methods. Number 4. Dean Foods, multiple brands including Dean's TruMoo. The bankruptcy revealed systematic problems. Dean Foods filed for bankruptcy in 2019, exposing a company struggling with declining milk consumption, failed business strategies, and inability to compete with cheaper alternatives. The financial collapse indicated deep operational problems affecting product quality. The conventional production dominates. Dean Foods primarily produces conventional milk, using standard industrial dairy practices, meaning the milk likely contains pesticide residues from grain-fed cows, antibiotic residues from medical treatments, and elevated growth hormone levels from synthetic hormone treatments. The testing reveals contamination presence. Studies examining conventional versus organic milk consistently find conventional samples, like those Dean Foods produces, contain detectable pesticides, antibiotics sometimes exceeding FDA tolerance levels, and significantly higher growth hormone levels than organic alternatives. The animal welfare standards match industry minimums. Dean Foods sources from conventional industrial dairy operations using CAFOs where thousands of cows are crowded together and treated as milk production machines. The welfare standards represent bare minimum legal requirements rather than any elevated care. The multiple brand strategy confuses consumers. Dean Foods markets milk under numerous brand names, including Dean's, True Moo, and others, making it difficult for consumers to identify that the same company with the same problematic practices produces multiple products they might purchase. The price pressure drives cost cutting. As Dean Foods struggled financially, the company faced increasing pressure to reduce costs throughout production. This economic stress likely led to even greater cost cutting that further degraded quality, animal welfare, and safety standards. The market dominance has declined. Dean Foods was once America's largest milk processor, but declining sales and bankruptcy indicate consumers are actively choosing alternatives. The company's fall suggests systematic failure to meet consumer expectations for quality and ethical production. Food safety researchers note Dean Foods represents the problems with conventional industrial dairy. High-volume production focused on cost minimization rather than quality maximization, resulting in milk that contains contaminants absent from organic alternatives and comes from cows in substandard welfare conditions. Number 3. Generic store brands. Safeway, Kroger, Albertsons. The quality testing consistently shows problems. Independent laboratory analysis of generic store brand milk repeatedly finds higher levels of pesticides, antibiotics, and growth hormones compared to organic and premium brands. The contamination isn't occasional, it's systematic across multiple store brands. The sourcing is deliberately opaque. Store brands provide virtually no information about dairy sources, mixing milk from multiple suppliers based on whoever offers the lowest price. The constant supplier switching based solely on cost means zero consistency in quality, animal welfare, or production standards. The antibiotic residues exceed FDA limits. Research testing conventional store brand milk found some samples containing antibiotics at levels higher than FDA tolerance levels. The presence of illegal antibiotic levels represents serious food safety violations that threaten public health. The illegal antibiotics were present. Testing detected sulfamethazine and sulfathiazole, antibiotics that are completely illegal for use in dairy animals, in conventional milk samples. The presence of banned antibiotics indicates either contaminated feed, illegal veterinary practices, or inadequate withdrawal periods before milking. The pesticide contamination is widespread. Store-brand conventional milk contains detectable pesticide residues from conventional grains fed to dairy cows. While often below EPA limits, the chronic low-level exposure raises health concerns, especially for children who consume significant milk quantities. The growth hormone levels are significantly elevated. Laboratory testing shows conventional store-brand milk contains substantially higher levels of bovine growth hormone and associated insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, compared to organic milk, suggesting widespread use of synthetic RBGH-RBST to boost production. The cost pressure creates dangerous incentives. Store brands exist to provide the absolute lowest prices, creating intense pressure on dairy suppliers to cut every possible cost. This economic model incentivizes using the cheapest feed with pesticide residues, treating sick cows with antibiotics without proper withdrawal periods, and using growth hormones to maximize production. The animal welfare is systematically poor. The economic pressure to provide rock-bottom prices means dairy suppliers use the most intensive confinement operations with thousands of cows crowded in CAFOs, never accessing pasture and living in conditions that generate the mastitis infections requiring antibiotic treatment that contaminates milk. Public health researchers specifically warn that generic store-brand milk represents the highest contamination risk. Systematic testing finds pesticides, illegal antibiotics above FDA limits, and elevated growth hormones, all resulting from cost-driven production methods that prioritize price over safety. Number 2. Conventional non-organic major brands. Horizon, others using RBGH. The synthetic growth hormone use is widespread. Despite public concerns, many conventional dairy brands still source milk from cows treated with recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH, RBST, a genetically engineered synthetic hormone created by Monsanto to artificially increase milk production by forcing cows' bodies beyond natural limits. The mastitis infections multiply under RBGH. Studies document that RBGH usage dramatically increases mastitis infections in dairy cows, creating painful udder inflammation that requires aggressive antibiotic treatment. The increased antibiotic use directly leads to higher antibiotic residues contaminating milk. The animal welfare impacts are severe. Cows treated with RBGH suffer from increased health problems, including mastitis, lameness, reproductive issues, and shortened lifespans as their bodies are pushed to produce far beyond natural capacity. The synthetic hormone causes documented animal suffering on a large scale. The IGF-1 levels are elevated. Milk from RBGH-treated cows contains elevated levels of insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, a hormone linked in some studies to increased cancer risks. While controversial, the elevated IGF-1 levels provide a biochemical marker indicating RBGH treatment. The international bans reflect concerns. Canada, the European Union, and many other countries banned RBGH use in 1999 due to animal welfare concerns and uncertainty about human health effects. Only the United States continues allowing widespread RBGH use in dairy production. The labeling loopholes hide RBGH use. While some brands prominently market RBGH-free milk, many conventional brands still use RBGH-treated milk without clear labeling. Consumers cannot easily identify which conventional brands use synthetic hormones unless specifically labeled as hormone-free. The antibiotic resistance crisis is fueled by dairy. The systematic use of antibiotics in conventional dairy, especially elevated use in RBGH-treated herds with increased mastitis, contributes directly to antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The CDC reports 22% of antibiotic-resistant infections originate from foodborne pathogens. The KFO confinement is standard practice. Conventional dairy brands predominantly source from concentrated animal feeding operations, where thousands of cows are crowded in confinement without pasture access. These conditions breed disease requiring constant antibiotic use and create massive environmental pollution. The economic model prioritizes production over welfare. Conventional dairy focuses on maximizing milk output per cow, using synthetic hormones and intensive confinement, rather than supporting natural production cycles and healthy living conditions. The entire system treats cows as milk machines rather than sentient animals. Food safety and animal welfare experts warn that conventional non-organic major brands using RBGH represent systematic problems. Synthetic hormones causing animal suffering and elevated IGF-1 in milk, increased antibiotic use creating resistance risks, and intensive confinement operations with severe welfare and environmental impacts. Number 1. Fairlife, Coca-Cola. Here's the absolute worst according to animal welfare investigators and multiple class action lawsuits. Fairlife Milk, owned by Coca-Cola, markets extraordinary care for dairy cows, while systematic undercover investigations expose some of the most horrific animal abuse ever documented on American dairy farms. The 2019 Fair Oaks Farms investigation went viral. Animal Recovery Mission released footage showing workers at Fair Oaks Farms, Fairlife's flagship supplier, kicking, beating, and body slamming newborn calves. The abuse included stabbing calves with steel rebars, burning them with branding irons, and depriving them of adequate nutrition. The systematic abuse was widespread. ARM investigators documented employees sitting on calves with body weight the animals couldn't bear, dragging calves across concrete, hitting them with hard plastic bottles, and kneeing them in the spine. The cruelty wasn't isolated to one employee. It was systematic across the facility. The extreme confinement conditions were deliberate. Calves were kept in total darkness for up to 20 hours daily with ventilation, and lights shut off to cut costs, creating deadly temperatures exceeding 100 degrees. The cost-cutting measures directly caused calf deaths from heat stress and poor ventilation. The veal industry connection was exposed. Fair Oaks Farms sends male calves to veal operations where they're confined in filthy crates measuring just 2.5 by 5 feet, forced to live in their own excrement and kept in darkness. Fairlife's marketing never mentions this systematic connection to extreme veal industry cruelty. The $21 million class action settlement admitted deception. In 2022, Coca-Cola and Fairlife paid $21 million to settle lawsuits for false advertising, admitting consumers paid premium prices based on extraordinary care, claims that were fraudulent. The settlement represents one of the largest consumer protection cases in dairy history. The promises to reform proved false. Despite claims after 2019 to improve animal welfare, ARM returned undercover in 2023 to Fair Oaks affiliated farms, Windy Ridge and Windy 2, and documented conditions worse than before with continued beatings, medical neglect, and systematic cruelty across operations. The Woodcrest dairy investigation showed ongoing abuse. In 2024, ARM investigated Fairlife supplier Woodcrest in New Mexico and documented workers kicking cows in the face repeatedly, clipping hooks between nostrils and yanking with full body force, and dragging sick, downer cows and newborn calves with tractors and chains. The criminal charges followed the exposures. The abuse documented at Fair Oaks Farms led to criminal charges against 3 employees, though critics note the farm owners and Fairlife executives faced no criminal liability despite systematic abuse occurring under their oversight and profit. The continued milk sourcing despite promises. While Coca-Cola claimed to stop sourcing from Fair Oaks after 2019, ARM investigators tracked milk trucks from Fair Oaks affiliated farms directly to Fairlife processing plants in 2023, proving the company continued relationships with abusive suppliers while claiming otherwise. The marketing deception is comprehensive. Fairlife charges premium prices, often double the cost of conventional milk, based on marketing claims of extraordinary care and ethical treatment that undercover investigations repeatedly prove are complete fabrications designed to deceive animal-conscious consumers. The Coca-Cola ownership enabled systematic cover-up. Despite multiple investigations documenting horrific abuse at supplier farms, Coca-Cola acquired full ownership of Fairlife in 2020 and continues aggressive marketing. The brand has grown 30% annually despite viral abuse footage, suggesting Coca-Cola successfully buried the scandal through corporate resources. The Select Milk operational control continues. Although Coca-Cola owns Fairlife, lawsuits allege Select Milk Producers, founded by the McCloskeys who own Fair Oaks, retains operational control, meaning the same individuals overseeing documented abuse continue running dairy operations, supplying Fairlife milk. Animal welfare investigators, consumer protection advocates, and multiple federal lawsuits universally identify Fairlife as the worst milk brand in America. Systematic documentation of extreme animal abuse, including beating newborn calves, false marketing promising extraordinary care, $21 million settlement for consumer fraud, and continued abuse at supplier farms despite promises of reform. The brand represents the ultimate betrayal of consumer trust and animal welfare. Beyond the 5 worst milk brands, investigators reveal 5 bonus secrets. Bonus Secret 1: 60% of conventional milk contains antibiotics. The Emory University study was shocking. Laboratory testing of 69 milk samples found approximately 60% of conventional milk contained detectable antibiotic residues, while organic milk samples showed no antibiotics. The contamination rate is far higher than FDA-run studies claim. The illegal antibiotics are present. Researchers detected sulfamethazine and sulfathiazole, completely prohibited for dairy cows, in conventional milk samples. The presence of banned antibiotics indicates either illegal veterinary practices or inadequate withdrawal periods before selling milk. The FDA tolerance levels were exceeded. Several conventional milk samples contained legal antibiotics like amoxicillin at levels exceeding FDA tolerance thresholds. The violations represent clear food safety failures that regulatory oversight failed to prevent. Bonus Secret 2: growth hormone creates the antibiotic problem. The RBGH treatment causes mastitis epidemics. Synthetic growth hormone forces cows to produce far beyond natural capacity, causing painful udder infections requiring aggressive antibiotic treatment. The hormone directly creates the antibiotic contamination problem. The Monsanto hormone was banned internationally. Canada and the EU banned RBGH in 1999 due to severe animal welfare concerns and uncertainty about human health impacts. Only the US continues allowing widespread use despite documented animal suffering. The antibiotic resistance crisis links to dairy. The CDC reports 22% of antibiotic-resistant infections originate from foodborne pathogens, with dairy industry antibiotic overuse being a major contributor to creating dangerous superbugs that threaten human medicine. Bonus Secret 3. Antibiotic-free. Labels are marketing deception. All milk must test antibiotic-free by law. Federal regulations require that any milk testing positive for antibiotics must be discarded. The antibiotic-free label is therefore meaningless marketing designed to make consumers think they're getting something special when it's simply the legal minimum. The testing is inadequate. Milk testing occurs sporadically and can miss contamination. The inadequate oversight means antibiotic residues regularly enter the supply chain, despite regulations supposedly preventing it. The withdrawal periods are often violated. Dairy operations are supposed to discard milk from cows, treated with antibiotics until the drugs clear their systems. Economic pressure leads many operations to violate withdrawal periods, selling contaminated milk to avoid financial losses. Bonus Secret 4. Conventional dairy drives environmental destruction. The CAFO pollution is massive. Concentrated animal feeding operations housing thousands of cows create enormous manure lagoons that contaminate groundwater, release greenhouse gases, and destroy local ecosystems through nutrient runoff, causing toxic algae blooms. The grain production feeds environmental damage. Conventional dairy cows eat grain grown with intensive pesticide use, chemical fertilizers, and fossil fuel consumption. The environmental footprint extends far beyond the dairy farm to include destructive industrial agriculture. The water consumption is unsustainable. Dairy production requires enormous water quantities for cows to drink, facilities to clean, and crops to grow for feed. Industrial dairy operations in drought-prone regions deplete aquifers while producing the cheapest possible milk. Bonus Secret 5. The dairy industry is systematically cruel. The forced impregnation cycle is constant. Cows are forcibly impregnated repeatedly to maintain milk production, with calves immediately separated from mothers, causing intense distress. The separation allows humans to take milk intended for calves. The male calves become veal. Since male dairy calves don't produce milk, they're sold to veal operations for extreme confinement and slaughter. The dairy industry is inseparable from veal industry cruelty. The slaughter happens young. Once dairy cows stop producing sufficient milk, usually around age 4 to 5 compared to a natural 20-year lifespan, they're transported to slaughter. The dairy industry is ultimately the beef industry, with dairy cows becoming hamburgers. These 5 milk brands, Great Value, Dean Foods, generic store brands, conventional non-organic major brands, and especially Fairlife, represent the worst of American dairy. The pattern is consistent. Systematic animal abuse marketed as extraordinary care, antibiotic and hormone contamination, cost-driven production that sacrifices quality and welfare, and deceptive marketing that charges premium prices for products that fail to meet advertised standards. The viral undercover investigations, $21 million consumer fraud settlement, laboratory testing showing illegal antibiotic levels, synthetic hormones banned internationally, and extreme animal cruelty prove these brands cannot be trusted. Animal welfare investigators, food safety researchers, and consumer protection advocates all agree. These milk brands prioritize profits over animals and consumers. Protect yourself by choosing organic milk from brands with transparent sourcing and legitimate third-party animal welfare certifications. Avoid conventional milk containing pesticides, antibiotics, and synthetic hormones. Never buy Fairlife given the documented systematic abuse and consumer fraud. If this video helped you understand which milk brands to avoid, hit that like button. Subscribe to the hidden menu for more dairy industry investigations that expose what milk companies don't want you to know. And drop a comment below. Will you stop buying these brands, or has this changed how you think about dairy? Your awareness helps protect animals and consumers. Remember, extraordinary care. Marketing means nothing when undercover footage shows workers beating newborn calves with steel bars.